Hi, everybody. So nice to be here with you on the GlobalLight Broadcast for November. Let's jump right in. So what I want to talk about this month is the concept of seeing is believing, or what I call the formula for thriving and success. This is very closely intermingled with the energies of self-love and appreciation. So if you've been watching my segments for a while, you know that I like to put forward a concept in the beginning, pull it all apart and talk about it in the middle, and then bring it all full circle in the end to give you some valuable tools and concepts and insights to really think about how you can start to apply them in your life. So, appreciation and self-love, we know, are two of the most important tools that we need to be working with every day now. We need to be finding things daily that we appreciate, that make us feel aligned, because things happen in our brain and in our subconscious minds when we do this. It happens unconsciously whether we're doing it or not. Unfortunately, what most of us are doing most of the time, that science has shown, is that we're walking around 95% of the time having the same thoughts today that we had yesterday and the day before that and the day before that. They are conditioned patterns of beliefs, thoughts, behaviors since we were college age. In our early 30s, late 20s, in and around college working age. By then, we are ingrained in our beliefs and our patterns, and we just continue to project them, attract back, and stay in this loop. So we have to, if we're not living the things we want to be living and feeling the way that we want to be feeling, or if we want to be improving, we have to break those unconscious loops. How do we start to do that? Instead of grappling with the biggest problem you're trying to solve right now, go smaller. Find things that are obvious and right out in front of you. So what I mean by that, for example, is I live in New England. It's really easy right now to take a drive and look at all of these fantastic fall colors. It is delicious here right now. It is so beautiful to see all the big red oaks and maples, golden poplar trees. It is stunning in New England right now. We also have an abundance of organic farmers here, and it's apple season, and it's pumpkin season, and it's all those warming spices for digestive fire, right? It's turmeric and ginger and cardamom, and it's apple crisps and apple pies and stews and soups, and it's really, really easy to appreciate so much that's around us that can help put us into a state of positivity. When we are in that state, our brains literally are wired to release oxytocin, that love hormone, that feel-good hormone. So we literally are helping rewire our brain and create new synaptic pathways. That's going to be important in a minute. In hypnotherapy, we are always looking for what blocks that, what's in the way. So it's custom work, Most of us have programming. In fact, everyone has programming. Everyone on this planet has some form of programming, and here's why. The critical factor that you've heard me talk about before, it's that association-making mechanism. It comes online about the age of 7, matures between 7 and 11. So what's happening before we have that reasoning mind coming into play, where we can interpret data, associate against programming or thoughts or beliefs and patterns that we already have ingrained in our subconscious mind? What's happening before that? Well, from birth to 7, everything is going in as programming. Why? Because we're wired to survive. We literally have to rely on our caregivers, our authority figures, to survive, for all of our needs to be met. We're not able to do that as babies. And so everything is, hear the word, projected. All of that is projected onto us, even by the most well-meaning of parents. Everybody unconsciously projects their beliefs, even if they're well-intended, well-meaning. So we are acquiring information. All of that is going right into the subconscious mind. It's bypassing the conscious mind because we don't have the ability to associate and reason yet. So it's going straight into the subconscious mind, where the subconscious mind keeps every single memory of every experience you've ever had. And then what happens? We become negative dominant because We can have all kinds of positive experiences, but the ones that caused us pain, the subconscious mind will keep at the surface because its job is to keep us safe. Its job is to always move us away from pain and towards pleasure. So it keeps it right at the surface. So what do you think we are associating all of the data we are taking in from the world against? Against our negative programming in effort to what? Keep us safe. The subconscious mind governs our autonomic nervous system. Our bodies are how it communicates. This starts to become really important. You start to see that if you're not doing things consciously to put yourself into a state of parasympathetic drive, of resources, of positive feelings of appreciation, then we are only able to project from our negative dominant programming and what? Attract back, hear the words, people, places, and things that match that programming. That is what we call creating our reality. It is literally how we are wired. So if we are not doing something to change our negative dominant programming designed to keep us safe, if we are not literally collapsing that and infusing that and anchoring that with positive resources, changing that negative programming into positive programming, we are living in a chronic state of negative programming. And that creates what? Stress. Stress creates what? Inflammation. I did a big piece on that a few months ago about chronic inflammation and how that is affecting our ability to think. See, when the subconscious mind receives information from the critical factor that there is stress. Now, think about the world today, right? Our brains are 2 million years old. When we were living in caveman days, we knew that if we saw a tiger while we were out gathering, that we had to get to safety. So the subconscious mind's job is to keep us safe. What happens in a millisecond? In a millisecond, it shifts the autonomic nervous system into sympathetic drive. What happens? Blood flow shunts away from the immune system, from the reproductive system, from the digestive system. Now, what does that mean today? It means we're not digesting well. Our gut microbiome is compromised. Conception is more difficult. Our immune functions are suppressed. And where else? The higher thinking mind, prefrontal cortex. Our ability to make good decisions is being diminished. What's happening? Dendritic branches in the amygdala are growing from chronic stress and inflammation. What does that mean? We don't want that. What that means is we are more often in a state of division and anger with the inability to think clearly and make decisions. So that's starting to make sense for what you see, what you hear on the news every day. This is what's happening in our brains as a result of chronic stress. We have to start to break those patterns every single day. Why? Why the repetition? Because that's how our subconscious mind learns. It's also how we shift into parasympathetic drive every single day. With my clients, we do a hypnotherapy practice multiple times a day. We do session work, but then you do work at home. Why? Because when you learned how to ride a bike, you didn't do it once. You had to do it over and over. When you learned how to speak a language, you had to practice it. The subconscious mind, when you learned how to drive a car. But tell me, you never forget how to drive a car. But have you ever had the experience where you're driving home and you don't even remember how you got there? Right, your subconscious mind drove you home. Why? Because once it's got it, it knows it, and its job is to keep you safe. So, if you start breaking this negative loop, we start to really see that that requires the ability to see a future before we have proof of it, right? We have to believe in it in order to see it. So seeing it in our mind, even though we don't see it out in front of us yet in our reality or on the screen of space, becomes something that literally rewires our brain, and it reorganizes our filing system in our subconscious mind. That's what we're doing in session work and clinical hypnotherapy. We have to find specifically what your negative beliefs are, where they came from, and we have to collapse them. You can't just work with everything's okay, I'm fine, life is good. You can't lie to your subconscious mind. It knows you intrinsically. It knows every cell that created you, and it knows how you're supposed to function. But it's the information that it's receiving from how you perceive the world. And you perceive the world based on the projection of your negative dominant programming. Are you starting to see the constant loop that everybody's in? Now, if you're doing this 95% of your day unconscious, it starts to explain some things, doesn't it? So how do you thrive in this world? Are there people thriving in this world? Yes, absolutely. But you got to change the patterns that you have unconsciously, and you've got to get into your own programming and reorganize to make that positive dominant. If you remember, when we learn to strategically block out what's being fed to us. If you remember, I talked about this a couple of months ago in that segment with inflammation. I gave you some alarming stats. I'll get into that in a second because they've been updated, and I looked at that updated information and I want to share that. But if we don't learn to consciously block out what's being fed to us, and I say that strategically, not to be alarming, but I want you to think about it. When was the last time you heard something on any news organization in social media that wasn't to create a shock value? That doesn't mean it's not happening in the world, of course not. But is it equally balanced? Are we hearing just as much good news? Are we hearing about the people that are helping other people? Are we hearing about the young students that are doing amazing work with agriculture? Are we hearing about anything good? Is it an equal playing field? No. So what does that mean? Do you feel like an equal in the creation ability that you have when you hear that information? I don't think so. I don't think we see ourselves as equals. So what happens in our mind? I want you to really hear this. This needs to land. They become the authority figures, and they are projecting all the fear-based information. And what happens? That bypasses the critical factor, goes right in as programming. Subconscious mind shifts the body into sympathetic drive. And now we are no longer able to think straight, make clear decisions, and we feel angry and divided day after day after day. You got to start to see yourself as an equal creator if you're going to be listening to the news, if you're going to be on social media, if you're going to be engaged in your technology for hours every day. You need to give yourself equal time as your own creator being, choosing self-appreciation, self-love, and reorganizing your ability to associate against your negative programming. You have to be able to become positive dominant so that what you hear doesn't shift your body into chronic stress, that you're able to put that aside and balance it out with your own ability to what? To create the reality in front of you. How? By believing in it before you see it. How? By the daily practice that you keep. You must be an equal player. Does that make sense? Is that starting to make sense? So some of the statistics, this is why I want you to really hear this. I gave you some mental health statistics a few months ago when I did that inflammation piece, or I think it was the chronic stress piece. As of right now, 1 in 3, so 30% of young adults between the ages of 18 and 25 experience a mental, behavioral, or emotional health issue in the past year. 26.9% of teens aged 12 to 17 have one or more mental, emotional, developmental, or behavioral problem. 36.7% of high school students reported feelings of sadness or hopelessness in the past year. This percentage is higher for females. They are skewing at 46.6%. Hispanic students at 40%, and lesbian, gay, or bisexual students at 66%. Among college students, 29% have been diagnosed with anxiety, and 23% have been diagnosed with depression. Now, what is that in the body? Chronic inflammation. You heard me talk about that from the studies and the science, from the clinical trials from Dr. Daniel Amen and Dr. Austin Perlmutter on that piece in inflammation. I spoke all about this. And our negative thoughts are contributing to the inflammation in our brain. Inflammation in our brain presents as depression, anxiety, chronic fatigue. Our bodies start to break down. If we don't have regular blood flow going to our immune system, if we are in a constant state of stress and sympathetic drive, our bodies begin to break down. So, in 2021, 43% of 18 to 29-year-olds experienced symptoms of depression. compared to 21% in 2019. So in 2 years, that number doubled. 48.5% of 18 to 29-year-olds screened positive for anxiety in 2021. That's half, 48%, compared to 11% in 2019. These are the numbers that are staggering. This is what's happening with our young people. They are also happening in our adults. And if you are watching the news and having these conversations around your children, you are the authority figure. You are projecting your fears. They take them in as truths, and we just continue the genetic lineage, don't we? So all of a sudden, using daily tools to line up with appreciation, to line up with self-love, becomes literally how we rewire our brains. So if we start to use a daily practice, I want you to really hear this, that anything can happen. Everything becomes possible to you. So I want to tell you a couple of clients that I worked with recently. One, because I just was astounded at how quickly this turned around. I was working with one client who had a lot of emotional pain. She was in a legal battle, and I have permission to share the story. I never talk about clients unless I've spoken with them first and they've given me explicit permission. So she was in a lot of emotional pain. There was a court battle with family members that literally was about whether or not she was the biological child of her father. Now imagine what that can actually compound into over decades of time. Who am I? My literal existence is being taken from me, all over inheritance and a battle about other things. So in session work together, we had to go back and find some of that negative programming that allowed that to become the dominant truth, that allowed her to stay in this state of feeling powerless towards this. And then we found all the resources, because your subconscious mind has every memory you've ever experienced, and not just from this lifetime. So you have all kinds of resources. They're not on quick recall. Because why? Because it keeps your negative programming dominant to keep you safe. Once we collapse that dominant negative programming, and we were able to find the source of that for her, and then reprogram in her worth and her beauty and her intelligence and her capability, we were able to anchor that in the timeline. We were able to work with that and become positive dominant in less than 4 weeks. We wrote a suggestion together that was about using and utilizing that divine problem-solving intelligence that's within each of us. That's also known as the superconscious mind. Superconscious mind is the field. It's everything inclusive, but it flows to us and through us. How we express it out and use it is completely up to us on a moment-by-moment basis. So when we programmed into the subconscious mind that we were utilizing the divine problem-solving intelligence within her to locate and bring to her easily the proof of that documentation and complete this whole experience in a just and fair way, documents that had been missing for decades were delivered directly to her in less than 4 weeks. They were mysteriously found in a place that had never been looked at when things were being cleaned out in a house, and delivered, hand delivered right to her, exactly what she needed. So why did it happen? How do we create that reality out in front of us? Well, we have to find what's in the way of it, reprogram it, and then program in what it is we want. And the subconscious mind doesn't judge you as worthy. You are already worthy. The energy that creates worlds flows through you every single day, all day long. How you choose to express it is based on your programming. So you see, it's all about the programming. You got to get in there and collapse what it is you picked up that's not true anymore. We talk a lot about personal truth in hypnotherapy, because once you find out what your personal lie is, you know what your personal truth is. You got to work with that every single day, because the subconscious mind learns through repetition. And once it's got it, that's all it does. It's its job. Its job isn't to judge or analyze. It just orchestrates the circumstances out in front of you. You project from what you believe and attract back that which matches it. People, places, and things. Hear those words. People, places, and things. This is how we are creating our reality. So, going forward, there's a structure to thriving, isn't there? There's a path and a blueprint to doing well no matter what is going on around you, or always being able to make a good decision in a quick period of time, to be able to tune in and trust that super conscious information flowing through you. That's what intuition really is. It's the ability to stay connected and not shut off. That blood flow isn't shunted away from the higher thinking mind. We have resources. We're in parasympathetic drive. The body's relaxed. We have a positive dominant belief system around our abilities and capabilities and our worth, and it flows to us. There are always people who thrive in times of chaos. How you are going to be one is the path and is the blueprint for you. So it is, in my opinion, that is such a personal journey where in clinical hypnotherapy, we have to collapse the specific programming that you have because it's different for everyone. So I want you to really understand that it's not anything to do with how well educated you are, how long you went to school, what experiences you had, whether you're single, divorced, children or not. None of that matters. You are an equal player on this playing field with your creation abilities, but how you project from your dominant programming and how you attract back is the loop that you're in that I want you to start to think about. How can you start appreciating every day, getting into that level of appreciation, self-love, and nurturing? How can you start to consciously work every day with reprogramming your subconscious mind's beliefs and understanding how it's communicating to you? Do you know how your subconscious mind communicates? It communicates in 4 main ways. It's always through our body. It's random thoughts, feelings, memories that come out of nowhere, and our dreamscape. We are in subconscious when we are dreaming. So pay attention. If you're not feeling well before we jump to judgment about why and who triggered us and the catalyst, it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean those circumstances are appropriate or okay. I'm not giving them a pass. But if it's active within you, it becomes your ability to see, ooh, I've got an old negative belief within me that's activated and I need to collapse that. I give you tools in clinical hypnotherapy of how exactly to do that specifically for you so that you live with the tools independently to manage yourself in this world because you came here to thrive. I actually believe, in closing, that one of the most important things to take away from today is what a time of mastery we are living in, to literally know how to believe your future before you see it, to walk that path, to enjoy, hear the word, enjoy that journey, because we can't be pushing against it and receiving at the same time. We can't be blaming everything and receiving and thriving at the same time. You cannot occupy that at the same time. So we have to be doing our own due diligence to see our future, right? We have to believe in what we are seeing because the subconscious mind doesn't know whether it's happened yet or not. If you are working with imagery, and I'm going to get into that next month because it's another whole piece, but imagery is incredibly profound. It does not know the difference. So if you are seeing in your mind the future that you have and believing it in your programming, then the subconscious mind just does its job. What a path of mastery when everything else that's being projected at you is in complete opposition to that. Certainly doesn't sound like that's a coincidence to me. Does it to you? I don't think so. So with that, I'm going to wish you a blessed journey. Know that you are capable. Know that you have all kinds of tools to learn how to work with your subconscious mind. If you ever want to investigate that with me, I would be more than happy to set up a free 30-minute consult with you and talk about your specific blueprint to creating the life that you want to be living and feeling the way that you want to be feeling. That would be an honor. I want to turn it back to you in the studio and say thank you as ever for inviting me into your hearts and into your homes. I hope my pieces are valuable and give you a lot to think about. You are an equal on this playing field, and do not ever forget that. And you deserve to be living the life that you want to be living in a time where you can thrive. I promise you that. Bye for now. Until next month.